Hello, welcome to my face again. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna get straight into things. I always start these subjects and these videos with just genuine curiosity. And today it's something that I complain about with a lot of my friends on a daily basis, and that is rent is too high. Rent is way too high. It's not just a feeling, it's in every news article, and it's being talked about very clearly. And I want to talk about that along with homelessness, as it's easier now more than ever to kind of fall into homelessness because it is unaffordable just to have a regular housing, just to have simply housing over your head, a roof over your head, just for the simple basics that everyone wants. And I'm going to talk about all of that. So I see a lot around my city in particular this cute little saying I see spray painted on buildings and things, and that is rent too high. And it most certainly is. Something I also see a lot in my city is homeless people, and I don't want to brush that off as something that you just see when you're in a highly populated city, or that's something that you just see with more people being around or living in a city that's more densely populated. There are reasons that these conditions do exist for people to be homeless, and there are ways to help and assist people in these positions. And also, I also want to say, a lot of times it's easy to brush off, and question certain things if, people aren't able to get a job, or if they're not able to go to a homeless shelter, if homeless shelters are being overrun or completely overwhelmed, or people need additional assistance, maybe rehabilitation program before entering a job. There's so many factors and so many other kind of avenues to get into, but I'll just do a general overview of why these conditions are existing. They are at its most extreme point in today's day and age. Homelessness is at its highest point, and rent prices are at its most unaffordable. So I want to go through a few main reasons that I found for the rise of extreme homelessness and how it hits the most vulnerable populations always. It's people with disabilities, people of color, and unfortunately children that are with these families in vulnerable positions. And the first one being, of course, for homelessness is people can't sustain housing, obviously. And now more than ever, rent is at its highest point. And it's not just a feeling. People have given away with luxury. People have given away with yearly vacations. People have given away with buying luxury items, wanting a motorcycle, or, wanting a luxury bag, whatever. People, I think, too, because at least in communities around me, I know that I haven't had a vacation, and it doesn't matter. It's not about me. But in general, people aren't, fighting for luxury. Obviously, people are fighting for essentials. People are fighting for the ability to not spend 60% of their income on rent so that they can buy more food, housing essentials, so that they can afford more for their car monthly payment, so that they can afford more on their student loan monthly payment, things like that. People are fighting just kind of for survival. And definitely, I think a lot of younger people are in this bucket as well. We're not trying to buy a house. We're not saving up to buy to get a down payment for a house. That's that's way way down the line. Maybe we'll think about that when we hit retirement. We think about maybe we can get a house with 16 other roommates, but not now. So I don't think people aren't afforded the ability and luxury of thinking about luxury items. And unfortunately, permanent housing, I think, is kind of being put in the bucket of luxury, or unsustainable, something for people with a lot higher wages, not the average person. That's obviously not the way it should be. Everyone should be afforded permanent housing. Everyone should be able to get permanent housing. But because of the conditions that exist now, it's a lot more unattainable. And people just want to survive. Like I said, they want to be able to feed their families. They want to be able to feed themselves. They want to be able to not feel burdened with simply paying their housing bill or paying their temporary housing bill, apartment rent. And a household is considered rent burden if it spends more than 30% of its income on rent and utilities. I think most of us know this. What most people may not know is 74% of extremely low income renters experience a severe cost burden, meaning that they spend more than half of their limited income on rent. And of low income households spend unattainable portions of their income on rent, and this is every single month. So a lot of times they may be using savings to provide for their monthly rent, and of course this is unsustainable. And of course, the closer and closer you get to this, the closer and closer people are to homelessness, not being able to provide housing for themselves from month to month. And also just yearly too, because for some odd reason, rent prices go up every year. I don't know how this is like a thing, but it's crazy how in most major cities, when you are renting for a property, and every year once your lease is set to renew, your rent goes up, and it's usually like 2 to 5% or something like that. How is that like? But like, why is that like just a common thing? Like your rent will go up 5% just because. And even still, even if the thing is, it's not like you're promised to raise every year. That it doesn't make sense. But even still, it's like, even if you get more income and your rent goes up, then the price of the dollar then just decreases, because like everything just kind of keep going up and up and up. It doesn't make sense. And then food goes up, and then everything goes up, so it doesn't even make sense. And also for low income earners that face rent burden, extreme rent burden, for these people, wages have stagnated over time. So this is an important piece, especially for vulnerable populations that face the greatest risk of homelessness. And in a lot of cases, they are people of color, they are people with children, young children, families. In some cases, they're disabled or unable to work due to their disabilities. People in lower income jobs spend more of their income on rent, leaving little for essentials like food, childcare, healthcare. Healthcare is a big portion too. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But for these people, they are the most vulnerable people, people with families to provide for. And of course, when they're spending more on their rent, that leaves less for them to provide for food for their children. And also with other things going up, like food prices going up, they're in a really vulnerable situation, that, they're already in a vulnerable situation, being low income earners and having stagnated wages. It's just even more burden on them. For people that would qualify, a lot of these people that would qualify for housing assistance programs, many of these programs have gone away with after kind of the COVID years. So a lot of programs that were spending more and a lot of these programs that are still around, such as the Housing Choice Voucher program, which is a federal government program for assisting low income families and the elderly and disabled to decent, safe, and affordable housing in the private market. These programs are strained for applicants. They aren't able to provide for as many applicants that they do have, and the waiting lists are very long. And like I said, they're extremely strained on what they can provide for and how many people and how many seats they have. So it's just always endless lack of funding. And here's some stats too for homelessness. 6.8 million more affordable housing units are needed for extremely low income families. 580,000 plus people are experiencing homelessness on any given night. And 70% of all extremely low income families pay more than half of their income on rent. And going back to also this affordable housing units and how we need more of this. We need more affordable housing units. No more luxury, okay? And also talking about my city again, something I see a lot of times that I complain about a lot is luxury apartments, luxury building, luxury living, luxury. No one is asking for this. And if some people are asking for this, the amount of luxury apartment buildings that are being made, not this many people are asking for luxury apartment buildings. First of all, this isn't luxury. This is like just standard. Second of all, no one's asking for, there's not 5 million people asking for, I just want luxury, I just want high rise. People want affordable housing units. Like there's so many more people that just want affordable, standard, safe, rat-free, I don't know, housing. We like just essential, right? Like just the bare physiological like safety essentials. No, you only get luxury so that you can pay $3,000 for a single whatever. Yeah, a lot of people aren't looking for this luxury, but I was doing some looking, there's a video I'll link on why most developers are only building luxury apartment buildings, and has something to do with like they're only going to be making more money from luxury apartment buildings because they're simply not making enough to cover how much it is to build these properties. They're simply not making enough profit from affordable housing units that they would be versus making a luxury apartment building. Materials are cheaper. They're able to slap on a higher rent price because of that stupid name. And they're able to recoup more of their development expenses, whatever. And also, too often when these luxury, I'm gonna break my fingers doing that. These luxury apartment buildings, once they're being made, revitalization efforts to disadvantaged neighborhoods price out the existing residents who are often a part of marginalized communities. We already know this. We already know about gentrification. And this, of course, leaves people with fewer options for safe and affordable housing even further. And this always, like I said, hits people of color, Hispanic communities that have been living in houses, permanent houses for a long time. Black people that have been living in permanent houses for decades. And there's new construction. They're like, oh, we found this great area we can do. Look, there's a park already, there's a school already, and property manager is like, we can make I don't know how much money scoping out this area, buying up all these houses that are already here, and making non-permanent housing, non-permanent apartment buildings, luxury apartment buildings. And a lot of times they're going to scope out elderly people, they're going to scope out vulnerable people that they feel like they can buy their houses at a low price and lowball them, and then of course tear permanent housing down to build non-permanent housing, and leave these people that have been living in these communities, permanent communities, for decades with not enough money to buy a house in this actual market. Personal story, side note. Okay, 2 side notes. First, do you watch Fixer Upper? Because the guy, what's his name? The white guy with the orange hair. He did this. Like, we all enjoy those, like, Fixer Upper shows, whatever. But it's crazy watching the strategies that they use, because Chip, that's his name. Of course his name is Chip. There was an episode I was watching, right? And they were finding this neighborhood. There's a couple that they were, obviously looking for a house to remodel their house, whatever. And Chip is the one, I guess, that will scout the, like, person that lives in, like, the housing, or if there's a house that they find, that they're like, oh, this is a great fixer upper, he will go out and scope the actual people that live there, whatever. And so there was a specific house, I guess he was saying that it was in a great neighborhood. He felt like it would be great for the couple that were wanting to move into this neighborhood and, get a fixer upper house that was, cheap, that they could remodel. And I guess the really unfortunate part is that there was already someone living there. There was already someone in that house. And I guess they were, above a certain age. That Chip felt like, hey, you need to get out of here. And so literally in the show, I need to like rewatch this because it's like really disturbing when you think about it, how they were like literally showing that. Like he was like, yeah, we went to this house like so many times, we kept calling them, trying to get an offer, trying to get the house off their hands, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we finally were able to do it. And like, it was shown as like such a victory, and like they're like, oh, this, younger couple, they get to live there with their newer family, building, fit their family, whatever. But then you're like, that's so, like, the thing is too, he mentioned something. He mentioned that he like kept calling like year after year, month after month. He kept calling like all the time. And these people also were like, above a certain age. They're probably retired, whatever, elderly people. And he knew what he was like. And of course, they're going to offer less than like what either the property's worth, because also they're going to be doing renovations, so that they're going to be spending more to fix up this house and make it livable for the next person, whatever, and do some renovation there. But yeah, that's really disturbing, and I thought that was like really disturbing, and it made it harder for me to watch like the other shows, because I was like, that's really like, that's predatory. That's the definition of that. And also it's like they strategically do knock on the doors of people that are older, people that may not have like children with them, to know that like this is not a good price. Someone offering you $70,000, even though they bought their house in like the 80s for $35,000, and now they're being offered, double that, $70,000. Once they buy that house, they're going to be selling it for $500,000. You're not going to be able to get another house for that price, for like a third of that price. Like if you sell your house, you're not going to be able to get a house for less than $300,000. So yeah, anyway, moving on. Okay, solution number one of the most effective ways to stop the flow of people into homelessness is more affordable housing units. And also, we need to incentivize, or I'm saying we like I have any say, but someone, right? The government, I don't know, they're not doing anything. Somebody needs to incentivize property developers to build affordable housing units, to make it, I guess, more profitable to provide affordable housing units. Because if it's not profitable enough, or if the zoning code is a strain to deal with, they're just like not gonna do it. And also, one of the reasons too why luxury apartments are, so skyrocketing in their rent, is that more families that would move into permanent housing are downsizing to these luxury apartments to avoid high mortgages. Obviously, most people don't want a high mortgage, and when you think about the instability of housing interest rates and the mysterious property taxes that can fluctuate from year to year, the apartment options start looking a little bit more appealing. And although this is not really how it's supposed to work, luxury apartments were intended for couples with children or families. They're really built for like college students, young people saving for permanent housing and buying a house. This wasn't supposed to be the stopping point. Apartments were not supposed to be the stopping point. It was supposed to be a way on the route, and it was supposed to be a way for people to actually save before putting down a down payment for a house. But that's not happening. You are no longer saving anywhere you go. Living in an apartment is expensive, and living in a house is expensiver. Okay, it's more expensive. Data from the US Census Bureau recorded that nearly half of all renter households in America, which is 22%